Welcome to DeborahReed.com, Crafting with Deb. Today's topic, Just Resin. Introducing the new Just Resin 2-part epoxy system. To make little frame charm pictures, assemble your supplies. I'm using Mod Podge for this series. The Just Resin Startup Kit. It includes 5 little picture frames. There's a variety of picture frames available. Using a clean brush, apply the Mod Podge to your pictures. There is waterproof paper available, which will mean that you do not have to use Mod Podge or any other sealers. Take a soft brush and just apply the Mod Podge liberally to the picture. If you use too stiff a brush, it may scratch your picture. I'm using glossy paper in this situation. You'll note that on this picture you can see that I've smeared the ink. My picture was not quite dry, I just printed it. Now I'm going to prepare the findings. Now typically I'll sit and I will cut out all my pictures so that I know what sizes they will fit inside the findings. Then I will prepare the findings by just dabbing in some more Mod Podge so that I can glue the picture into the finding. With a little bit of extra glue and placing the picture into the finding, it'll squish up to the sides and therefore seal the sides. Now make sure your picture is right in there, flat right down with the edges all pushed down to the edge. This way you've got a good seal. The Mod Podge will come up around the edges and it'll dry clear. Now just put them to the side and let dry. Now I have in the past used duct tape, and I have taken that duct tape and put my fixtures or my frames onto them so that the backs won't leak. There are some frames and fittings out there, as you can see here, that have openings in the corners. So they are like little picture frames where you can poke the corners through. On the duct tape, it seals it down. Not only that, but it holds them all in place and they all don't go shifting off. So you can have little strips all ready for when you're preparing your epoxy. Now here's the kit. We have 2 2-ounce bottles. The first one is part A. The second one is part B. And use equal portions of these. Now to make it easier, the mixing cups that I've provided have graduated markings, tablespoons, grams. It makes it a lot easier to mix into one. I use popsicle sticks, wooden sticks, and the sample metal frames come with your kit. Again, multitude of samples of types of charms. Now, there are ways to warm the resin up. It's best when it's warmed up. It mixes faster and easier. In this case, it's in a cup of warm water, or I put them on my heater, and that makes them warm, or a nice warm bag. You can mix in 1 cup, 2 cups, or 3 cups. I prefer to use 1 cup to measure it all in and start the mixing, and then I'll pour it into a 2nd cup, and then I'll mix. The reason for that is that sometimes the resins get stuck into the corners at the bottom of the cup. They have little fins in the bottoms of the cups, and your stir stick is rounded so it doesn't quite catch it all. This way, if you re-pour it into another cup, it'll mix much easier. Now when the bottles first come, the tips have not been trimmed off. So just trim them off, and you can put your back little resealable. Just do not trim it down past the little snap area where the cap snaps on. That way they won't spill. Now, taking your part A, measure it into the measuring cup. In this video, you'll see that it's very thick. Came out very thick. And it makes it a little harder to measure. You have to sit and you have to tap and make it flatten out. That's the only reason that I'm tapping here. But once you thin it out, it almost becomes as thin as water. And again, once I've figured out how much I want to make, I then go to B, and in this case nip off the first one, and then pour it in. This one is very thin. Now, make sure you reseal all your bottles, put them out of harm's way, take your popsicle stick, and start to mix. Not too rapidly, you'll create bubbles, and this is something you don't want. So the less bubbles you create, the better. Now in this situation, it's very thick. I've got a thick and a very thin, so I'm going to have to really mix to get this done. Now, the reaction starts almost immediately, and it starts to go a milky white, or just cloudy. Just keep mixing. It can take a couple of minutes for this. And then once I get it back to a clear state is when I would pour it into another cup. Now, you can keep mixing just to be sure. And then you can go slowly. Try not to make too many bubbles. Still mixing. So it's not something that's instantaneous. You do take a few minutes to mix this so that it is mixed properly. If you don't mix it properly, you will get tacky spots because obviously the resin, the two parts, didn't mix properly. It's the consistency of a thin syrup. Now, what I'll do is I'll just let that sit for 5 minutes. Now, in this picture, you'll see that I've got all my pictures down onto tack tape, and I'm pouring it into a second cup. Now, I've got my little findings ready with my pictures all sealed in and they're dry. Now, all I do is take the stick and just drop by drop place it into it. Depending upon how much you want to get in there, if you want it flat or if you want it domed. Again, you can put a little bit in, you can push it to the sides, get it there, just don't overfill because it will bubble at once and then go over, like anything that you fill it up to the side areas. Now, the viscosity of this resin allows you to dome. So what you can do is you can go in, and then you can get as much as you want in there at first, go to your next one, go all the way down, and then come back. Now the best part of this resin is that even when this dries, you could actually add more and you cannot tell the difference. So here I'm just moving my resin around just so that I can get it to the edges. And it almost self-fills by itself the more I add. I come back to the first one because I just want to add a little bit more. I'd like a little higher dome on them. But again, be careful not to overfill. Now, once you've done this, and like me, I have pets around the house, so and I live on a farm, so I have lots of dust and hair. Now, I bought this silicone brownie container. It's reusable because it's silicone. The resin will pop out when it's finished. And all I do is pour a little in, push my picture in, and then fill it about halfway. And then I let it sit. And again, I cover it and let it go. Just make sure everything's clean. Have your picture ready, coated with Mod Podge. Make sure it fits. But I always pour a little in first, then put my picture, and then pour the rest. Here are examples of filled charms. As you can see the glare, I tried to get the glare so that you could see that it was doming. and a bad picture of it in the brownie container.